closely at this photo of a Bull Terrier from 1915. Now, look at the egg-shaped skull of the same breed today. We didn't just change them, we broke them. This is the Victorian Explosion, a century of genetic experiments that crushed the Pug's airways and collapsed the German Shepherd's spine. In this video, we are peeling back the skin to reveal the shocking, bone-deep reality of your favorite breeds. Is this evolution, or is it cruelty disguised as purity? The side-by-side comparison is going to leave you absolutely speechless. The shocking 1915 photo. Discovery. I recently stumbled upon a dusty archive of photographs from 1915, and honestly, what I saw made me question everything I thought I knew about our furry best friends. You look at these black and white images, and for a moment, you feel a sense of confusion, a disconnect that is hard to shake. We are talking about the Victorian Explosion, a period where dog breeding went from function to obsession. When you look at a Bull Terrier or a Pug from over 100 years ago, they look like entirely different species compared to the dogs sleeping on our couches today. It is genuinely unsettling. I remember staring at a photo of a 1915 Bull Terrier and thinking, where is the egg-shaped head? It wasn't there. The dog looked proportional, athletic, and functional. Leading veterinarians and geneticists have pointed out that 100 years is a blink of an eye in evolutionary terms. Yet, we have managed to alter these animals more in a century than nature did in millennia. This isn't just about style, it is about biology. But here is the part that might make you uncomfortable. We didn't just change them, we might have broken them. If you think you know what a purebred dog looks like, these photos prove that our definition of pure has drastically warped over time. The realization hits you hard. We have normalized deformities that would never exist in the wild. But wait until you see why we did this, because the reasoning is even more disturbing than the photos themselves. Understanding the Victorian Explosion era. So, how did we get here? To understand the present, we have to look at the Victorian Explosion. This wasn't a literal explosion, but a genetic one. During the Victorian era, dog breeding became a status symbol, a hobby for the wealthy, who treated genetics like a canvas for painting. I have always loved the idea of a specific breed for a specific job, but this era shifted the focus from, what can this dog do, to, what does this dog look like? It creates a weird feeling in your gut when you realize that living, breathing creatures were molded solely for human aesthetic pleasure. We are seeing the results of a 100-year experiment, where the control variables were vanity and trend. Historical records from the kennel clubs of that era show a sudden tightening of breed standards. Suddenly, a flatter face or a more sloped back wasn't a flaw. It was a feature. Experts in canine history often cite this period as the moment where health began to take a backseat to the trophy cabinet. It is terrifying to think that a decision made in a parlor room in 1915 is the reason a dog in 2024 requires a $5,000 surgery just to breathe. But here's the kicker. They didn't have the medical technology to see the internal damage they were causing. We do. And yet, the trend continues. This era set the stage for the dramatic skeletal changes we see in the Bull Terrier, the Pug, and the German Shepherd. You might think this is ancient history, but the Victorian Explosion is still detonating in the genes of our pets today. The Bull Terrier's skull morph. Let's talk about the Bull Terrier, because this is perhaps the most visual example of extreme modification. If you look at the 1915 version, you see a handsome, athletic dog with a distinct stop, the indentation between the forehead and the muzzle. It looks like a dog. Fast forward to 2024, and that stop is gone. It has been replaced by a convex, egg-shaped skull that is unique in the canine world. When I first saw the side-by-side comparison, I legitimately thought the modern photo was photoshopped. It is that extreme. We have essentially bred a curve into a bone structure that was meant to be flat. Veterinary neurologists have noted that changing the shape of the skull this drastically can impact everything from the teeth alignment to the pressure on the brain. It is not just cosmetic. It is structural engineering gone wrong. You have to ask yourself, who decided this looked better? The 1915 dog looks capable of catching a frisbee without blinking. The modern version looks like a caricature. This massive shift in bone structure didn't happen by accident. It was selected for, generation after generation. But if you think the skull morph is shocking, wait until you see what we did to the airways of the Pug. That is where the story turns from strange to heartbreaking. Why modern pugs cannot breathe. This section is difficult for me because I love pugs. They are hilarious and sweet, but the Victorian Explosion has not been kind to them. In 1915, pugs had snouts. They were short, yes, but they protruded enough to allow for a functional airway. They looked like small mastiffs, sturdy and healthy. Today, the snout has been pushed so far back into the skull that it is practically concave. You hear people say, "Oh, look at him, he's snorting, that's so cute." But let's be real for a second. That sound isn't cute. It is desperation. That is the sound of soft tissue blocking a windpipe. Top veterinary universities have published extensive studies on brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome, BOAS. They clearly state that the anatomy of the modern pug is a direct result of human intervention. We prioritized a flat face over the ability to oxygenate blood. It honestly makes me angry. Imagine trying to run a marathon while breathing through a coffee stirrer. That is the daily reality for many of these dogs. The 2024 pug often struggles with heat regulation and exercise intolerance, issues that the 1915 pug likely never faced to this degree. It creates a moral dilemma for all of us who love them. But while the pug struggle is obvious in its face, the German Shepherd struggle is hidden in its gait, and that transformation is equally tragic. The German Shepherd's sliding spine. The German Shepherd is supposed to be the ultimate working dog. Strong, agile, and durable. The 1915 photos show exactly that. A dog with a straight, level back, standing square on all four legs. It looks like a wolf ready to trot for miles. Now, look at the modern showline German Shepherd in 2024. The back slopes down at such an extreme angle that it looks like the dog is permanently crouching. We have introduced a roachback, or extreme angulation, that has devastated the breed's mechanics. I have seen police canine units specifically switching to working lines, or Malinois, because the showline structure just can't hold up to the physical demands anymore. Orthopedic specialists point to this structural change as a leading cause of hip dysplasia and spinal issues. It is painful to watch a dog that is mentally ready to work, but physically limited by its own skeleton. We took a warrior and crippled it for the sake of a silhouette in the show ring. The contrast between the 1915 straight back and the 2024 slope is undeniably one of the most drastic examples of human interference. But what does this actually look like under the skin? This is the part they don't usually show you on TV, but the X-rays tell the whole story. X-rays reveal the bone truth. If you think the external changes are shocking, the internal reality is a horror show. When we look at the skeletal structure of these breeds from the Victorian era versus today, the X-rays reveal the true extent of the deformity. We aren't just talking about skin-deep changes. We are talking about the architecture of life. The Bull Terrier's skull doesn't just look different, the bone density and sinus cavities have shifted. The pug's jaw is often crowded with teeth that have nowhere to go because the mandible has been shortened so drastically. And the German Shepherd's spine and hips are aligned in a way that creates unnatural torque on the joints with every step. I once spoke with a radiologist who said, "If you built a bridge with these angles, it would collapse." That stuck with me. We are building living creatures with structural flaws that we would reject in a building. It forces you to confront the reality that standard doesn't always mean healthy. Seeing the bones makes it real. It proves that this isn't just about types or styles, it is about biological compromise. And this leads us to the ultimate question, the one that might make you rethink everything about the pet industry. Is purity actually animal cruelty? We have reached the point where we need to have a hard conversation. Is our obsession with purity actually a form of animal cruelty? The data from the Victorian Explosion suggests that by chasing a specific look, the egghead, the flat face, the sloped back, we have compromised the welfare of the animals we claim to love. Geneticists warn about the founder effect and the lack of genetic diversity, but the physical deformities are the most visible evidence. If a pug from 1915 could breathe, and a pug from 2024 struggles, have we improved the breed? The answer seems obvious. I believe true love for dogs means prioritizing their quality of life over their adherence to a breed standard written 100 years ago. We are seeing a movement now to breed back towards health. Retro pugs with snouts, shepherds with straight backs. That gives me hope. But it starts with us acknowledging the mistake. The comparison between 1915 and 2024 isn't just a history lesson, it is a wake-up call. We broke them, and now it is our responsibility to fix them. Because at the end of the day, a dog doesn't care if it wins a ribbon. It just wants to run, breathe, and live without pain. And really, isn't that what they deserve? We loved them into deformation, but knowledge is the only cure. If you believe health matters more than a trophy ribbon, smash that like button and subscribe to Dr.DogPedia. Let's fight for breeds that can actually breathe. Don't miss our next investigation. Click right here.